Mockingbird and Liarbird by Raya Wakayami on AO3. Chapter 12. Do you have everything you need? Inko asked for the 10th time that morning, as she waits with Izuku outside the apartment for Aizawa and Yamada to pick him up and take him to UA. He's got his duffel bag full of clothes and other necessities for the weeks away from home, as well as his staff in case in his bag. I do, Mom, Izuku says again. All right. You'll text me when you get there, okay? And you'll tell me everything that happens once you get back. I want to hear about what you learned. She says, with a smile, and Izuku nods, spotting their car coming down the road. I promise, he says and hugs her as the car pulls up beside them. Good morning, Yamada-san, Shota-san, Inko says, as Hisashi rolls down his window. Good morning, Inko-san. Don't worry, he'll be in good hands. Yamada reassures her, and she nods. I know. Have a good time, Izuku. You too, Hitoshi-kun, she says to the other teen in the back seat. Izuku gives her one last hug, and then gets in, waving as they pull off. Why are we going so early? Hitoshi asks as they drive towards UA, an hour earlier than usual. Your costumes came in last night, so you'll need to check that everything fits right and works correctly before going on your internship. Anything that doesn't will be sent back for adjustments if Powerloader can't alter it quickly. And you'll have to go without it to your internships, Aizawa explains. Really? Izuku asks excitedly. He thought he'd have to go in his school uniform and gym uniform or something similar. Yep, so we gotta get a mini fashion show before everyone else gets to campus and before you leave, Yamada explains, and Izuku nods excitedly. Hitoshi grins at him. They get to UA quickly, traffic light that early in the morning, and the two pros take them to Aizawa's office, where two cases with the number 18 and 19 on them rest unopened. 18 is Izuku, 19 is Hitoshi, Aizawa says. There's a locker room down the hall from here. Come back and we'll look over your gear. He instructs, and they nod quickly, grabbing their cases and rushing out to the teacher's lounge to do as told. Toshi, look how cool this looks, Izuku whispers, after opening the case to see his costume stored neatly inside. The cloth parts are folded on one side, while the support gear is nested in cut open form. My voice enhancer, Izuku says, holding up the tech. It looked like how Mei made it, but polished up. The strap is dark stained leather with sweet wicked material on the inside to keep it from chafing. The tech inside is a mix of dark gray plastic and the color of the coat and black matted metal. The speakers are discreet, hidden cleverly so you couldn't see they were there unless you got close enough, with the resonating nods jutting from it discreetly. There were also armor threads woven through the strap, and the backing that covers his throat has added protection. Izu, look at my personal cords, he says, showing the mass. And Izuku has to admit, it both looks cool and intimidating. This is amazing, Izuku says excitedly, and grabs his clothing piece and moves over to start changing into them. These feel like a glove. I guess more tailoring clothes make things fit better. Who knew? Izuku jokes as he zips up his shirt, but keeps the top portion unzipped so he could strap on the voice enhancer. He changes into his boots, making sure to stuff the bottoms of the pants evenly into the boots, trying them tightly and wiggle his toes to make sure they fit nicely. Shin guards go on next, and arm guards after he pulls on his gloves. Utility belt filled with various tools and first aid kits he's asked for. It's heavy around his waist, but it feels grounding. There's also a cup at the lower back as he attaches his retainable staff there. His voice enhancer goes on next, snug to his neck. It'll take a bit to get used to it, but it doesn't rub or pinch, which is a plus. Last to go on is his jacket, his hearing enhancers, and his wrist attachments. He messes with it a bit, but he's probably going to need the instructional to figure out how to program it and sync it to his support gear. Well, how do I look, Toshi? Izuku asks, and turns to see Hitoshi is just finishing getting ready, settling the new branded scarf around his shoulders. It's darker than his dad, more a light gray than a off-white. You look like a hero, Izuku says with a grin. So do you, Hitoshi says back. He messes with his own wrist attachment, and finally gets it on. Come on now, let's go put on a show, Hitoshi says, and Izuku nods, leaving his case there as he follows Hitoshi out of the locker room into the teacher's lounge. They knock and enter. As soon as the door opens, they're met with a loud whistle. Look at you two, Midnight crows from her spot, leaned against the desk. There are a few other teachers already there, and they both flush at so much attention. Aizawa and Yamada are at Aizawa's desk, and they walk over to them. Well, give a turn, Yamada orders, with a grin, and they do so. Looking good, little listeners. How do they feel? Anything too tight, too loose, pinching, or poking? He asks. No, it feels good, Hitoshi says, and Izuku agrees. Alright then go get changed back into your uniforms and pack it up. We'll be meeting in 1A briefly to make sure everyone has what they need for their internships. And then I'll be walking the class to the train station to make sure everyone gets on the right train. Aizawa instructs, and Izuku nods. They head back to the locker room and change back into their uniforms, still grinning excitedly. Even though they're only just started the hero course, they have catching up to do. This, at least, they don't have to catch up on. They're all going to their first internship this week. In this pack, they carry them with their packs of clothes to 1A, where only the earliest of arrivals are there, Yaozu and Ida. Good morning, Midoriya-kun, Shinso-kun, Ida says with his usual energetic hand gestures, though they can see some of that energy behind them is diminished with his brother's condition hanging over him. Good morning, Ida-kun, Yaozu-kun. Izuku greets with a wave at the two, as Hitoshi nods. Looks like we're both heading to the same way, Ida-kun, he adds. Ah, yes, indeed, Ida says, adjusting his glasses. If you want, we can exchange numbers to keep in contact, and maybe we could meet up when we're not doing anything for our internships, Izuku offers, fidgeting with his fingers nervously. That would be an excellent idea, Ida agrees, and pulls out his phone as they exchange numbers. Oh, Midoriya-san, Shinso-san, before I forget, Class 1A has a group chat together, for things like asking for help with homework and other school-related activities. I'll add you two so you can be in the loop. We have an official one set up by Aizawa-sensei for official use, but we don't use that unless we have to, she explains, coming closer. Oh, that's smart. Here. He holds out his phone, and she quickly adds him to the group. I'll add Toshi, Izuku says, as the taller teen starts heading for his desk. Did you get your costumes? Yaozu asks, noticing them both carrying familiar metal cases. Oh, yes, they came in this morning. We were just trying them on and making sure they fit, Izuku said excitedly. I'm going to go need to look over my instruction manual to figure out all my new gadgets, he says excitedly. The door opens and a few more students stumble in, looking tired but wide awake with excitement. Izuku excuses himself from Ida and Yaozu to head to his desk and set his stuff down, knee bouncing with excitement as he waits for Aizawa to get there and take them to the train station. All right, here we are. Everyone here have everything they need? Aizawa calls out, and the class calls out in various ways of confirmation. Nodding, He pulls out a list of itineraries and motions. Sero and Koda over to hand them their train tickets as their train is the first to get there before setting them off. Izuku-kun, Uraraka says softly, as she looks over him with a wan smile. Can I ask you something? She asks softly. Oh, of course, Izuku says with a nod, and follows her a short distance away, but still in sight. What do you need? Um, I know you and Ida-kun will be in Hosu together, she starts with, wiggling her hands. And I know he says he's okay, but with everything that's happening with his brother, will you keep an eye on him? I know you're at different agencies, but if you can just see how he's doing? Of course, Izuku offers with a smile. Manuel and Subsumi's agencies aren't that far from each other, and our paths are bound to cross when we're going on patrols. Plus, he gave me his number so I could text him a bit to check up on him. He offers. Thank you, Midoriya-kun, Uraraka says with a beaming smile. Uraraka, Aizawa calls out, and she grins at him as she waves farewell, then rushes over to get her ticket from him. She bids Ida goodbye, then disappears behind the tunnel. What was that about? Hitoshi asks, coming up beside him. She asked me to keep an eye out on Ida-kun, with everything that's happened with his brother, Izuku says. Ah, and the fact that he's entering where Ingenium was attacked, Hitoshi adds. What? Izuku asks. He was in Hosu, and was attacked by the hero killer there? It was all over the news. They expected him to attack there again, eventually. Hitoshi reminds him. I've been a little distracted, Izuku admits sheepishly, then he frowns. You don't think he chose Manuel's agency to try to look for a stain, do you? He asks. No clue. I don't know him at all that well, and you have no idea how he acted before the attack. But if Uraraka is worried, maybe she's got a right to be worried, Hitoshi points out. Maybe... Should we tell Aizawa-san? He asks. Keep me updated. If he starts acting weird, text me and I'll let Dad and Pops know, Hitoshi says, and Izuku nods. Midoriya, Ida, Aizawa calls out. Have fun with your dad, Izuku says with a grin, hugging Hitoshi quickly before he picks up his luggages and rushes over to Aizawa to grab his tickets. Stay out of trouble, problem child, Aizawa says softly to Izuku, and he nods. You too. Keep your eyes and ears open. Do what your instructors say and don't start anything. If you need anything, you know how to get a hold of me. Understood? Yes, Sensei, they both state. All right, go on. He motions, and they bow slightly before grabbing their things and heading for the terminal to wait for their train. It arrives 10 minutes later. He and Ida get on and find an empty spot as they sit and travel to Hosu. Grinning at Ida in excitement, Izuku opens his case to pull out a small booklet included with his case and started to read as Ida pulled out a book to read as well. Izuku waves to Ida in farewell as he leaves the larger teen in front of Manuel's agency and keeps going further east. Following the GPS on his phone, he soon finds Subsumi's agency tucked in between two larger buildings. Only 2 stories tall, it has a simple design with plain lettering announcing it as a hero agency. Approaching it, the glass door slides open and Izuku steps in. Looking around, the main lobby is painted in soft browns and tans, with tasteful frames across the walls of news articles and magazine articles of various cases solved by the agency, or rescue efforts done by people here. There's a shorter counter off to the side that acts as a receptionist desk, and a hall with a rather intimidating security barrier across it that leads deeper into the agency. Can I help you? A woman asks, and he looks over to see the woman with a short sky blue hair, done in a simple style behind the corner, smiling at him. Uh, um, I'm Midoriya Izuku? Izuku says nervously. I'm from UA, For the internships? He adds, Ah, yes, we've been expecting you. Hang on and I'll message Subsumi. She had to take a phone call, but she should hopefully be done by now, she says, and Izuku nods. He steps to the side, fidgeting with the handle of his case, as he waits for his instructor to come greet him. There's a soft hiss as the security barrier is released, and then Izuku gets his first personal look at Subsumi. Standing at nearly 6 feet in height, she towers over him. Dark brown, almost dark skin shines faintly under the lighting of the building that features her snake subtly across it. Her head is bald, the same featureless texture countering across her face and head through the hood of her costume covers it. Glowing golden eyes stare back as she grins, with very white teeth. Midori-kun, right? She asks, and holds out her hand. Yes. Izuku manages to get out, grasping it as she shakes his hands rapidly. Izuku subtly flexes his hands as he pulls it back. She's got a strong grip. Nice to meet you. You put on a good show at the festival. You and that purple-haired kid. Been a while since any Gen Eds kids have medaled, let alone two for silver and gold. People are going to nuts as they watch you two kick everybody's asses, she adds with a wink. Izuku flushes in embarrassment, having forgotten mostly that the festival was broadcasted national-wide and every worldwide via the internet. Thanks, Izuku says. Alright, let's get this thing going. Hitsuku-san, his pass, please. Subsumi says, looking at the woman behind the desk. Of course. Hitsuku-san says with a smile, opening a drawer to pull out a lanyard with his pass hanging from it. This will allow you to pass both security barriers into the training room and the support department as well, she explains softly. Thank you, Izuku says before Subsumi rests a hand on his shoulder to start steering him towards the mouth of the hall. I'll see you later, he adds hastily. Welcome to the Miri, Hitsuka calls out cheekily before Izuku is forced forward so he could scan his pass to be let through the barrier. Only those who work here full-time don't need a pass, Subsumi explains as she leads him deeper into the agency. Everything's tied to our biometrics, so it reacts automatically. Now, this, she waves at the door behind him, is mainly the business side of the agency. Hitsuka is our face for a guest. She's also licensed to use her quirk should the agency come under attack. Not that it had been, but you can never be too careful, mind you, Subsumi explains briskly. What is her quirk? Izuku asks excitedly. Kinetic barriers, Subsumi explains. Good for keeping under-desired out, and for stopping things like projectiles. Of course, we never want her to need to use her quirk, but she's there in case we're out and someone did attack, you know? Subsumi continues. Also, this floor are our press rooms for things like interviews. We get them from time to time depending on the case, but for the most part, we only have to deal with the press occasionally. Not like those big limelight agencies. She shrugs dramatically, and Izuku grins. Will I be working down here any? He asks. Probably not, especially since you're only here for 5 days, but you never know. You won't be giving any interviews and such, but you never know what might happen in the meantime. I'll give you some tips on how to conduct an interview, but we mainly focus on training patrols and learning how to bioreact side of an agency is run, or the dreaded paperwork, as I like to call it. First rule of being a hero kid, the industry runs on paperwork. You don't get paid, you don't do your job, and you get in trouble legally if you don't do your paperwork. Wow, Izuku murmurs. I never knew it was so intense like that. There's a lot of things the media never touches on when it comes to heroics. They glamorize the fashy, and ignore the backbone of the industry. Proper paperwork, good old fashioned legal work, and investigative skills are what led up to flashy fights and rescues you see on TV. This job is a lot of hard work. He reminds him. A lot of hard work, dedication, and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. Izuku recites with a grin, and she nods. Aizawa sensei told me that once. Smart man. Good hero, too. He knows how things are done and done right. He's not in it for the fame. He's in it to help people, which is how it should be. Unfortunately, a lot of people nowadays get in it for the fame and the TV time, to boost about their ranks rather than how they improve society by their actions. Subsi says, as they extend to the set of stairs, and she motions for him to scan his pass at the new barrier. I want to help people like me, who are treated badly because of our quirks, are seen as villainous and ignored, and those who can't fight back. They need a voice too, he says quickly. Good answer, Subsi says with a nod, and motions to the new hall. This floor is where all the fun stuff happens. That left door leads to our support department. It's small, but they're licensed to repair and build gear. UA already sent your support company info with your file, so they can contact them if need to be, should repair or adjustments needed to be. There's also open to chatting if you wanted to ask about upgrades to your suits. She explains. She gestures to the right. That door leads to the training area. We'll get a good look at that in a bit. Aizawa said you'd only just gotten your costume, so we're going to need to do some training in it so you could get used to it, working in it. Sound good? She asked. Yes. Izuku nods excitedly. Good. Down here is where we all stay. This is my room on the right. The one on the left are my sidekick's room, and our intern room. We're small here, but efficient. Go put your things inside, and then we'll keep going. She orders, and Izuku nods. Inside the room she points him to is plain, just a bed, dresser, closet, desk, and chair, as well as a small table and chair to eat at. A window lets in light and lets out a view of the street in front of the building. Izuku hastily sets his duffel bag and costume case on the bed before heading out. Alright, next up, my office, which is right at the end. She points to the door. We'll head in there for a second. First, we're going to get going here. She directs him to a different floor. This is our work area and rest area, she explains as she opens a door. There are already 2 people in there working at the computers. That's Yashimoto-san and Ueda-san. They're civilian contractors who help out both in here and in the support areas, she explains. Hello, Izuku greets with a wave, and the wave back before going back to work. We do most of the paperwork and investigative work in here. As you can see, it also acts as our kitchen and rec area, she adds, pointing to the second hall of the room, where there is indeed a kitchen set up, with a table to eat at, some comfortable chairs, a TV, a couch, and a pile of blankets. There's always food in the fridge, so if you're hungry, eat. If you use the last of something up, add it to the list, please. Some of us would like to know when we're out of something, she adds with a look to the other 2. You're never gonna let that live down, are you? Ueda calls out with an exaggerated eye roll as she glances at them with a grin. Nope, Subsi says cheekily before leading Izuku back out to her office. And this is my office. It's not large, but I don't need much space, she explains as they stepped in. It's not large either, just enough room for a desk, a chair, a couch, and a room to walk around. Behind her desk, window shows out the same view as Izuku's room. Let's sit down for a minute and talk, she says, and motions for the couch. Izuku sits down and fidgets as she gets settled. Alright, so you're a transfer student, not caught up with everything that has already been taught, so I'll answer any questions you've got. We start your patrolling tomorrow, and we'll do some training today so you can get a feel of your skill set and your quirk. First, though, explain how your quirk works, then I'll explain mine. Okay. Izuku nods. It's called Voice Box. I can copy any sound I've heard and replicate it, including people's voices. I can throw my voice up to about 30 feet in direction, no line of sight needed. I've been working on accurately created intofractions and ultrasonic sounds as attacks, which can have physical effects on people, like nausea, disorientation, and even paralysis. Though I've not done that one yet, and I'm a little nervous to try and practice it, he admits sheepishly. I also have an electro memory for sounds and can hear a whole range of sounds, including interphrenics and ultrasonic sounds. Izuku includes. Hmm. Subsi hums softly, taking in his words. A bit like present Mike, then. She concludes. Yes, Izuku says with a nod. I assume your support gear is built to enhance your abilities? She asks, and he nods. Good, good. We'll hand over your support manual to the support people to go over so they know what you have in case it needs to be fixed or adjusted. Now, my quirk, she says with a grin. I can rapidly undertune earth and rock with water, turning it into quicksand like substance to trap or slow subjects down for capture. I can also rapidly dry earth and stone as well. This works as a heterostatic and cement too. I can also use it to rescue, partially for rubble and collapsed building, as I can cause parts to soften or harden as needed. She continues. Oh, there's someone in 1B that has a quirk similar to that, though I only saw it a bit at the festival, Izuku says excitedly. Subsumi nods. Hanakun is a cousin of mine, she admits with a grin. He's decided to go somewhere else for his internship. She shifts back slightly with a sigh. I try to be very precise with my quirk, but accidents do happen. If I end up using it on and you happen to get caught with it, don't struggle or you'll sink fast. I'll get you out, okay? I won't let you get hurt by my quirk or by anyone we're taking down. When we patrol, you stay behind me, and if I tell you to stay back, you do. The max you should be doing is helping any civilians to get away from keeping them getting too close and possibly getting hurt as well, or letting me know if someone tries to sneak up on me. The only time, and I mean the only time you may use your quirk to defend yourself, is if you're in a situation where you can't run away, and it's the only way to save yourself. Got it? She presses. Yes, subsequently, son. Izuku nods. Now, my two sidekicks are out on patrol right now, and we've got nowhere to be for the next few hours. So, she grins. Go get changed into your gear and meet me down the hall by support and bring your case. We're gonna do some training, she declares, and Izuku grins back, jumping up to follow her out of the office to head for his room to change. How's working for your dad? Izuku asks softly from the other side of the line as Hitoshi lounges in his room. One of the perks of going with his dad for an internship, he doesn't have to stay at an agency. He pets Fritz absently as she purrs on his chest. He's not holding any punches back, Hitoshi admits, recalling their training session earlier that day. I'd certainly seen a lot more of an agency than before, despite having been there many times too. I know, I never realized how paper driven they are, Izuku murmurs. Are you patrolling soon? He asks. Yeah, we're going out tomorrow afternoon. What about you? Hitoshi asks. Same. I texted Ida-kun, and he says he's patrolling tomorrow too. But he didn't say when. I know Manuel tends to go out earlier, so we probably won't cross paths. Izuku admits. Anything on that front? Hitoshi asks. Not really. I don't know him well enough to know if what he's texting is normal or not, but he seems okay. Maybe we could meet up later and I'll see how he's doing face to face, Izuku says with a sigh. Don't run yourself ragged with this, Hitoshi reminds Izuku. I know you want to help, but if he doesn't want to be helped, then you can't force things. I know, Izuku huffs out. The line goes quiet for a bit before he speaks up. It's weird, Izuku murmurs. What? Hitoshi asks. I think this is the longest we've gone without seeing each other or hanging out since we first met, Izuku admits with a chuckle. Aw, you're missing me, Izu? Hitoshi jokes softly. Maybe, Izuku murmurs, and Hitoshi can see the frown on his face, fighting to keep from smiling. You're my best friend, Toshi. I'm allowed to miss you. I miss you too, Hitoshi admits softly, with a small smile. Don't stay up too late, Izu. You've got patrol tomorrow, he adds, breaking up the silence. Yeah, you too. Night, Toshi, Izuku murmurs softly, and after Hitoshi answers back, the line cuts off. Scratching Fritz behind her ears, Hitoshi sets his phone aside and reaches out to turn his lamp off to go to sleep. Alright, you two, we're heading out. Don't burn my agency while we're gone, Subsi says as they pass the support area where Izuku can see Tailwind and Riptide lounging with a support woman who's busy twinkling on something. He'd finally met the two sidekicks that evening. He had arrived after they returned from patrol. No promises, Tailwind calls out with a grin. I've got a hankering for popcorn, and you know how unpredictable making a bag of that is. Yeah, Subsi grumbles, but she smiled before leading Izuku down the stairs. Come along, Mockingbird. We've got a patrol to get to. Izuku waves goodbye and follows her down the stairs in his gear. Outside, the sun is just finishing setting as the city starts to cool from the heat of the day, and lights are already starting to come on as natural light dims. We did a day patrol yesterday, so today we're doing a night patrol. While both have their dangers, nighttime patrols tend to be more dangerous due to the numbering factors. Can you tell me what some of those are? She asks as she starts to lead him away from the agency on their patrol path. Lack of light, an increase in artificial light, and an increase in crime, Izuku says after thinking for a second. Good. With the sun down, there's a lot more shadows for people to hide in. Artificial lights, especially colored, can play tricks on what you see, and as you said, criminals and villains tend to do most of their dealings at night, where they could hide easier. So keep your eye out and ears open. She taps her ears to indicate his hearing enhancers, and he nods, switching them on and adjusting them as his wrist attachments to not overwhelm himself. Do you do a lot of night patrols? He asks as they walk, eyes scanning the streets and alleys that are shadowed. I like to break up my patrols, switching between day and night to keep from being predictable. Predictability can hurt nighttime heroes, make you easy to ambush or avoid, but if I have a case, I will do numbers of the same shift in a row, Subsi explains. They walk in silence for a bit, Subsi greeting a few people, while stopping to say hello or to report something. By the time an hour goes by, they already stopped one fight and de-escalated a situation between a customer and a business owner. Subsi slows a bit, walking beside Izuku. So, Mockingbird, how do you like your internship so far? Subsi asks. It's not exactly what I expected, Izuku admits, honestly with a grin. Never is, kid. Subsi agrees with a nod, glancing ahead, a loud burst of noise, but it's just some people singing loudly as they head down the road away from them. So, have you figured out what type of heroics you want to go into? She asks curiously as they continue onwards. I'm really considering Twilight, he admits, fidgeting with the straps of his arm guards. Helping both in the day and at night, but also wanting to do some recruit stuff and maybe some intellectual stuff too. He trails off before humming. It's not hard to decide, he grumbles. Subsimi laughs at him, clapping his shoulders. It can be, but you've got your time, and just because you declare yourself for one branch doesn't mean you can't learn to do the other branches. Your quirk is very versatile and would do well in almost a lot of areas: rescue, underground, intelligence, and stealth. Don't worry about limiting yourself. Declaring an area is just for the paperwork side of things, and where you will mainly focus your efforts. But nothing says you can't branch out. I started as underground myself, Subsimate admits, but I pulled a few day cases and got a taste for it and went Twilight, and then realized I'm good at rescue stuff as well and started doing that. You'll find your place, she advises. That doesn't sound so, Izuku starts to say before a sound clashes his attention. A screech further away. It doesn't sound human. Um, Subsumi-san? He says, trying to figure out where the sound came from. What? She asks, glancing around, but before they can pinpoint it, the sound of shattering glass breaks the relative quiet of the darkening city, and they both look right. People scream in fear, rushing away. Shit. Mockingbird, stay back and help evacuate the citizens away from whatever is going on. She orders, and he nods. Everyone, this way! Izuku calls out, using his gear to throw out his voice further and make it louder as Subsimate runs ahead to figure out what is going on. This way! Izuku continues to call, waving his arms, and people start to swarm towards him in a panic. An explosion echoes in the distance, and Izuku looks to the east to see fumes of flames exploding into the night sky, illuminating everything briefly before fading back. People panic further, and Izuku has to fight against being swept away by the tides of bodies. Please move in a calm and orderly manner, Izuku tries, turning its speaker higher to be heard over the crowd. Some hear it and calm, but most ignore his words, pushing and shoving to get away. As he struggles to fight to keep his position, he hears the sound of clinking and crumbling and looks at a distant building half collapsing, the upper floors falling down as something demolishes the floors. The people around him surge in panic, and this time, he can't keep his footing. He's short, and despite his yelling to calm, no one is listening as they rush away, and Izuku is carried in a mob of panicking people. By the time he managed to pull himself free, he has no idea where he's at, and he can't see where he left Subsimi. Subsimi, where are you? He asks into his earpiece, but he must be too far away to connect, and he curses. He's closer to the fire that broke out, and he could see the heroes rushing about. Ida! Someone yells out, and Izuku recognizes Manuel. Manuel-san! Izuku calls out, rushing over to him. Please, have you seen Satsumi-san? We got separated. Izuku asks breathlessly, trying to keep him from panicking. Sorry, I haven't, and I can't find Ida-kun either. Try to help the civilians evacuate and stay away from the fight. Something is attacking the city. If you find Ida, tell him I'm looking for him, and give him the same orders, please. Manuel orders hastily. Before Izuku can say anything, Manuel rushes back in as someone calls for him, and he catches a glimpse of something huge, lashing at a pair of heroes who barely dodge. Looking around, Izuku can see any civilians and rushes further down the road, keeping an eye out for Ida's distinct armor as he looks for anyone needing help. As he gets further and further from the fire and fighting, he hears something else that stops him in his tracks. It sounds like yelling, and then a cry of pain. Izuku looks around, hoping to see a police officer or a hero, but they're all busy elsewhere, and even the civilians are gone, running away from whatever it is on this attack. His heart is in his throat. Izuku forces himself forward, aiming for the direction he heard it come from. It's as he's passing near an alley that the sound of metal on metal reaches him, as the yell of pain echoes through the shadowed alley. Izuku recognizes that voice. Pausing, he glances around the corner to see a shadowed figure standing in the middle of an alley, armed raised, as light reflects off the metal of what Izuku quickly realizes is a blade as he withdraws it. He can also make out the pale color of Ida's armor in the shadows. Izuku freezes for a second, not sure what to do. If he does nothing, Ida will be killed. But if he interferes, he could get into trouble. He promised Subsi he wouldn't do anything hero-related except what he was allowed. If he used his quirk, he could even be charged with vigilanteism. But how can he just stand by while Ida is killed? Aren't heroes supposed to help people? Even if it means being in the wrong? Hands shaking, Izuku grips the wrist attachment and shifts it slightly. Mei had included a SOS button that would send out his current location to all the contacts he programmed into the device. He spent his first night getting all his gear synced up and programmed up. With a grimace, he pressed the button, feeling it vibrate subtly to inform him it had been sent. And then reaches back to pull out his staff. With a quiet hiss, it expands. Then he takes a steady breath. Staying low, thanking his forethought on having gear that blends into the shadows easily, he creeps forward, the attacker more focused on Ida than anything else. When he's close enough, Izuku throws his voice. "Hey, what the hell are you doing down here?" A loud voice rings out from further down the alley, and the attacker whirls, looking to see who is coming. Izuku creeps closer, and as he gets close enough, he realizes that Ida isn't the only one here. A second figure, nearly swallowed in the shadows, is slumped on the ground against the wall of the alley. Izuku had hoped to distract the attacker long enough to get Ida out of there, but this changes things. He can't leave them here. "I'm calling the police." Izuku sends his voice out, and the attacker growls under his breath. Unfortunately, that's the wrong thing to say, because he rolls around, probably to finish his handiwork, and cold eyes stare down at him. Izuku, a few feet from Ida's prong form. "Who are you?" He growls out, and Izuku pales. This close, he can finally see what had been hidden in the distance and darkness. The distinct mass, the many blades, the aura that radiates off him. He found the hero killer's stain. Calling right before you fall asleep seems oddly sus, especially when you're there and you're like, this is weird being apart from you for so long, I miss you. The only thing that would make that gare is falling asleep in the call. Like, you go on call and you fall asleep together in the call, because that's a one-way ticket to falling in love. You fall asleep in a call with somebody, like the both of you falling asleep in the call together, yeah, that's falling in love right there. One-way ticket to Love Town. One-way ticket, not round trip. Once you go down that route, I'm sorry, buddy. You might as well be in love. Sealed deal right there. I'm just saying. Mighty gay. Also, Stain. We get that Izuku. We got Izuku with Stain. Also, this is a slow burn, so I predict that they're gonna get together 2 chapters before the end. So, chapter 18. Here's my prediction. Chapter 18. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. There's no consequences, but if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I say chapter 18. Fight me on this one. As always, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds, have a wonderful day or night. Join our community Discord server, link is in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.